Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. Welcome to the Audit Committee, Tuesday, 23rd of January 2024. We'll go straight on to the agenda. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Chair, sorry,
I just have to apologise for the fact that I declared that colleague was at the attend another meeting on behalf of the City Council.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick, and hopefully we'll still be all done by then. We'll see how we go. Thank you.
Chair, Council, we have 3 new members. I'm sorry, we have 5 new members who are Councillor Everett, Councillor Thomas, Councillor Vaughan Thomas, Councillor Vivian Thomas, Councillor Princely, and Councillor Francis.
And Councillor Francis has sent her apologies.
And I haven't had apologies from Councillor Everett, but she's not present. Whether she'll join us later, I don't know.
Thank you. So moving over to item 2, which is public questions and petitions. Have we received any?
No, Chair.
No petitions or questions. So item 3, declarations of interest. Any interests on the committee? I see none. So we move on to the minutes. That's item 4. We have 2 sets of minutes, and we have an exempt item minutes in pre-discussion with the committee. There was no concerns about either set of minutes, bar an anomaly in the exempt minutes of a financial figure, and that figure will be rectified. So do I have agreement on both sets of minutes from the committee? I see agreement for that, so we will move on from the minutes onto the first item of business, which is the cyber assurance report. I'll hand over to officers. Thank you.
Just sort of as a way of intro, the LGA recommends that we provide members with assurance on our cyber security. So this is what we're going to run through. So I'm going to hand over to Clive Morgan, who's our infrastructure and security manager.
Before that, you just need to resolve to go below the line if you're going to talk about the dashboard, please.
Yes, so making members aware that if we are to discuss dashboard elements, please refrain from asking that question. But
I think that excuse me, sorry members, but I think that Clive wants to present the dashboard. So what I've suggested is that somebody moves that you exclude the public, and we exclude them now because it contains information which is contrary to exempt information.
Should we move the whole item under the line, or just the dashboard section?
The covering report is above the line and it's available to members to see. It's just really up to you. But when you talk about the dashboard and during the presentation, I would recommend that you go below the line so it's not in the public domain.
Okay. So we're going to go to the presentation now, which will include the dashboard. So I move that we go below the line. Do I have a seconder? That's seconded, and the committee agree. Excellent.
That's resolved to exclude the public.
So we're issues to escalate and become greater than they were when they were originally reported back. So what I'm saying is, if you're leaving a dripping tap for a day, you've got a puddle. You leave it, for a week, the roof's come downstairs because you flooded the whole floor. So the reality is, how are we making sure that these are not escalating into bigger risks, to the organisation?
2 ways. Robert is quite right to deal with it by SLT. It's a much more rigorous approach. Exposes the situation and makes sure that basically the chief executive, the entire team, are fully aware of the issue. Number 2, the risk mapping that any head of internal audit will be completing will be identifying these gaps. And if a 3's been here and a base been here for 3 months, I'm very sure a couple of them will be radically higher up the list in terms of things and to be raising, but probably with Neville working in a small organisation like one, the monitoring officer, or the chief exec, because you do not want someone to stay on this for a very long period of time. They do raise really high risks. And that capital is now being resolved into the new actual structure in place in the governance process. If that had stayed on much longer and there hadn't been action, as did take place last year, that would have been a significant impact on service. Governance of capital is one of the main reasons council are in trouble. We have resolved that, we have moved forward, and to be honest, there wasn't the huge problem, but it could have been. And so the answer is that's quite well ahead of internal to raise those risks up and say, flag, this is my concern. This is an area for 18 months. I have had no update. I'm now thinking I need to raise it directly with level as Section 151 with the monitoring officer, they get a response, and the chief executive goes, you do raise statutory officers. That would be the normal process in my experience.
What I would say, I think, and committee members, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we've been understanding, we can see where the resource has needed to be applied. I would be minded if I was on this committee in the new cycle, that when we were receiving the first quarterly update of the new cycle, that any outstanding ones from previous cycles, that officers will attend mandatorily ongoing from that point, from the previous cycle. So from the closure of this cycle, any outstanding recommendations that have not been responded to adequately, by the time that first quarter report is done, there is an expectation that those officers come and explain. Because, we want to see these historical ones closed off. We've got assurance from yourselves in a new process to help close off these historical ones, but then we don't want to be back in that same situation. So it would be a case that, if there are not updates provided, that ultimately that people come along and explain it. And I think at the end of that first quarter is giving sufficient time for that to happen. But I'll do you want to come in on that, Keith? Come in on that, Keith.
I'm not sure that'd be a good idea or not. Do the management, you go and chase them. Do the management say, well, this and that, and you think, well, that's okay, I'll give you another couple of months or something. But why drag them in here if that quarter was up? Because you already had a word with them.
We need to see that in that report, though. We need to see it. And I think that's fair, but we need to see it.
What if you're right and your responsibility to challenge? Because just as I've said something does not make it true in and of itself. And to be very simply, that's your responsibility as audit to do exactly that. But also, personally, if I had a couple of, basically a 6-month period, and I've got the same answers and so on, I do negotiate to the exec direct and say, look, this is the response I've had from the Fed service. I have had enough, because it is now on my neck if he doesn't respond. I do that. I'm very clear about that. These officers will not be very happy with me, and I'm sure these officers will be very happy with Robert.
How many officers would be headed here today if we were doing that?
The one suggestion I said, rather than next cycle, say 12 months, because the problem is, if you get quarter 4, it comes through, then quarter 1, you get pushed into that. I'll give it 12 months, but I think anything other than 12 months does need to be closed down completely. And that is where I think I would recommend you change the approach. Then you can approach happy with. I would challenge that.
I think that sounds fair. Is that a direct point, David, on this? If you'd like to come in.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think probably what I say, speaking with the former head of internal audit to members, is that if an action has not been introduced after 12 months, I take the view that managers have in fact accepted the risk. So I'd be thinking, the first ones that were on the list, there's 2, for example, that have to do with risk management. And to say something about training, without me digging out and looking at it, it's about training being provided. That's obviously not been managed or undertaken. So the question is, the managers accepted on behalf of the council, they don't want to train staff in risk management, because that's not been done for nearly 15 months. So the question is that if managers have accepted that, and you can look at other ones as well, should it be an issue in effect that audit, internal audit, and the manager need to be saying, are you going to accept this risk? And if the answer is yes, for internal audit to then say, well, in that case, I gave an adequate opinion, I'm now going to give a limited opinion because that risk is there, it's been open, it's been accepted, but they're not going to know anything about it. And in fact, just accept that, because then I suppose in fact it gives managers the opportunity to go through that list and then over 12 months old say, we aren't going to do it anyhow. Because you've got to remember, members, that every action from internal audit, there's a cost associated with it in staff time to implement it.
Exactly.
Not just immediately, but going forward in the weeks, months and years that follow. So, it's not just the free actions to improve controls. It's really got to be, in my view, something that's fundamental for, in effect, I suppose, almost for a manager to come back to us and say, why have you not introduced it? So some of the actions that are limited or little, I forget what the
Yeah,
three
terms.
things are that they've got.
Yep, substantial.
In effect, needs attention, urgent, important, and needs attention. Priority three ones, to be honest, we're probably not interested about. Important ones, again, we're probably not interested about. Urgent ones, yes, please.
Well,
They should be
absolutely.
fundamental.
Absolutely.
They should be the ones that are flagged up in the corporate governance statement as being a specific area that we need to be concerned about.
Yeah.
So I think it probably needs to be, rather than just spending officers' time looking at actions that haven't been implemented, maybe officers need to go back and have a more fundamental think about how they want to knock off these actions that are on this list.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great shout. I mean, so let's bring that a little bit together. I think Gareth's points about things that are effectively 12 months out of date is, I think, a good sort of line in the sand for the committee. And so having an expectation that officers attend at that point, I think, would be right. I would take a little bit of exception to David's point between, urgent and level 2. I think the level 2 ones are still fairly important. But what I would say is I think your suggestion about turning it back and saying, well, look, you're clearly accepting this risk and we now need to rescore this area accordingly, I think has sound principle. So I'd be interested, obviously Teresa's not here today as an internal audit officer, but Gareth, what's your response to that as a kind of, rock on a hard place to push back with?
I've got two hats.
Yes.
I have internal audit. I totally agree with the approach the internal person says. As a person playing the other hat, the council side, I'd rather not have that happen, because in this case of risk, there'll be multiple attempts. I've got to the point I could do no more. We now need resource for the door. That resource will it will close that item down. If it's on here, either we have to accept it, but those are minor items, or we do tend to see we've accepted the level of risk, that's accepted. But these ones stay important, it means we know we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And so this is an issue which has popped up all the way to the chief exec, for instance. That is on her radar. She's concerned about it.
Good.
We've had a discussion about it, and we've had to delay and put resource to the door because we had the priority of the budget, the accounts, a whole bunch of other things, but they prioritise it. But that is a very important item. But I do take his point.
So will the chief exec tell the management what we're now decided here to warn them if they don't do what they're supposed to be doing, they're going to come in front of us?
That is the point of going to SLT, which will put it on the radar, very, very visible.
Put
The
more
visibility, even the chief execs are not time for everything. If it's done on a monthly basis, as Robert has suggested, it is becoming very, very visible to the chief exec. And there are people who are, and also sometimes there might be delays on senior levels, and now they're realising, okay, I put a head of service in a very awkward spot. I now realise that is not acceptable. It's can create problems as well. And that also forces senior people to have record. You need to actually deal with these issues sometimes. Sometimes it's not a head of service. It may be beyond their control, and yet they're the one person responsible and accountable for it. And that is a challenge at times.
Absolutely. Well, I think just on this point, I would like to say I think that the idea that any outstanding recommendations that are longer than a year, where there has not been good mitigation or responses provided in good time for the report, should come before the committee. So I'm going to propose that. And what I would also say about that is that I'm proposing that to commence from when we are reaching the first quarter of the next cycle, giving some leeway and time for the new system to bed in and for some of these to clear out. So that is my proposal. More than a year, they come to committee.
So
They've got 6 months to sort it out, basically, 4 or 5 months to sort it out. Do I have a second?
It's up July.
July, would it be the first quarter come?
When's the next meeting?
We got one in March.
But that won't be the first quarter, is it? The next
Will be July.
July.
So basically, I will inform the
Yeah, so that's,
position.
we're giving them 6 months to clear these off. If it's more than a year along, they come before the committee. Do I have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Osborne for this one. Okay, and I'll put it to the vote of committee members. So in favour of that, please indicate. Okay, that's a unanimous decision from the committee. So thank you for officers on that point. There are other details and tangents on this. So, and I'm noting the time. So any points from councillors? David's got a point. Please indicate if you've got other points about it. And Councillor Thomas Biv after as well. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I've got a number of points, I'm afraid to say. Can I go back to page 24 and 2.2 of the 5 audits that have been deleted? I looked back at the agenda from 12 months ago, and obviously the number of days that have been deleted, there's 58 days being deleted from the plan, which is 70% of the plan. Last year we deleted, or we postponed, whatever it was, 77 days, which is 23% of the plan. Are officers happy that over 2 years we're having 20% roughly less audit than we expected?
And I would add that I am not happy with that, and I have said that on both cycles at different times. But I will return to David's point earlier about getting that assurance in our annual governance statement and identifying these control risks in that respect, and how are we getting that assurance. But
sorry, Chair.
Yeah,
the question is that there's 20% less work being done at a time when budget's under pressure. Could it be that an officer would say, well, we did 20% less work, we'll have 20% less in future?
Well, this
That's the question.
No, well, this is the fear. This is the fear. But
we as a committee be happy with it 20% less audit?
No, we want more.
So that would be my first question.
Definitely. Gareth?
So the question is, it's not 20% less officers assigned, it's a fact, it is often one thing I've noticed with audits versus prior years, they're much more detailed. Even if there's somebody audit officer time doing this, the officer time all around to actually resolve the query is taking longer. They're much more detailed, much more. The quality of the actual look of all the financial controls system, the key controls that David referred to earlier, has been priority. That goes a lot of items that have to work through systematically. It's quite exhausting from our standpoint, which can be dealt with historically, which are now on the agenda. So in practical terms, what's happening is even the number of audit days is down, the number of officers spending time on these actual audits has probably gone up. I know for a certain amount of time, everyone you want to do the key control went up because they've been issued with the quality of the reconciliation part were not adequate and yet to pass audit, they're not acceptable anymore, and the amount of time to actually fix those has gone up, they're taking much more seriously. So I don't think the seriousness from office standpoint has gone down. It's just a question. There's so many other items, if you're spending that time, it is very difficult right now. But I mean, would you want to reduce it? We don't want to reduce it. We want to get things fixed, move on, and then actually get to where we can support these audits to be delivered, and some of them may actually deliver a resource there that I do accept. But I do think it's more to change.
I'm going to let David back in at that point, but just in a second. So, can you just confirm that, in terms of the internal audit team, the reduction in days that we've had on the last 2 years? I think the point about officers on the other side of it doing more work on the other side of it is a good bit of assurance. But the amount of days that are actually being delivered are reducing. It means we're getting less coverage every year, I assume. So consider that. Councillor Driver, I think, has got a concern about it. Effectively, is this a money-saving exercise in reducing the days? Is that?
The departments what don't finish, they've got less time spent on their reports. Are they saving money? So if you got maintenance, or if you got environmental or finance or something, they don't finish it. Are they actually saving money because they've got pressure on them in their bits to save money? Or we've got extra money left over at the end, we can put back in the budget, that kind of thing.
So is resource a drive for reducing, and have we had a reduction in days? And then I'm sure David wants to come back on that point.
There is a small reduction in days. It is not reflecting the amount of days reduction. In short, there is a saving in terms of days attributed to audit. However, that is not in any way, shape or form a driver, because the reality is we only have to complete the audits we get through, and that is the issue. I mean, finally, I'm talking
about before you get the audits. I mean, someone's done the reports, And if they're not doing 100% of the report, they're only doing 80%, and the following year they're only doing 72% and stuff like David was saying, did those departments save money?
There is a central audit budget,
Yeah.
and there is a small.
Now, is that the reason they didn't do it?
No,
What is the reason they didn't do it?
it's a question of there are only so much resources across the council. They're trying to do lots of pieces of work. There is enormous savings pressure on the whole government. And unfortunately, some things have been dropped off. They can't get to it, and it's what you find as an organisation.
I thought we just asked for managers to come in here if they ain't finished their reports. There's
I mean, what Councillor Driver is identifying there is an acute issue with resources in local government, and obviously we're feeling that squeeze, and we had that very good training last night about local government funding, and I suppose this is indicative of the pressures felt within the organisation and the amount of resource we have available. Would that be right, Gareth?
Yes. And quite frankly, it's getting more stress, even with all things being considered. It's not even the funding reductions, etc. It's simply the required pressure from the whole government have gone up over the period. And we are trying to make an awful lot of changes in the organisation, particularly Norwich, far more than places. And that's a very good situation. We do, unlike most councils, have a very healthy surplus this year. Now, that's very important because a lot of councils haven't done those changes. On that position, because we prioritise this, some things go by the wayside. Other councils might have delivered all their recommendations, I suspect not. But if they let them not focus so heavily on their savings and their modernisation, they could be in a worse situation. And people balancing risks in service areas. And I can't honestly say that always making the wrong decision. I would love to go through everything. Unfortunately, some people choose that, and some people may not have done what they should have done and should have prioritized these things more. Like we'd have to put individual item by individual item. Certainly in finance, it's not like a focus or interest. We're just trying to deliver them, and we're at our limits, to be quite frank.
Thank you. So I will turn back to David, who will have a response to the last point that Gareth made. But just before I do that, David, were there other members that had indicated before? Viv. Okay. So if David has a direct response to Gareth, we'll take that. Then I'd like to take Councillor Thomas's question, and then I'll go back to David's questions. Okay? Do you have a direct response to?
Yes, please. Again, it's following your question as well, Chair, if I may. So, are you saying to us that the 5 audits that have been deleted in 2.2 have been deleted not because the contractor doesn't have the resources, but they've been deleted because Norwich City Council staff don't have the capability to respond to the internal auditors who are going to be undertaking the work?
There are 5 different reasons as to why they were delayed, not deleted, delayed. They're still intended to take place in 24-25. And this is putting more pressure on the back end, as you all no doubt point out to me, because you still intend to deliver them. There's still a resourcing issue. But in the case of the first risk management, that was a decision to actually go and have an external people.
Sorry.
Yeah, so just to pick up on that, the staff wellbeing and the equalities have both been deferred, large number of audits which are outstanding, which support your point, David.
Correct, but I think the issue here is that have they been delayed because the contractor doesn't have the resources to undertake the work, yes or no?
It all depends on the individual circumstance. Every single one of these audits has got different reasons why they're delayed, or 2 have the same reason. But they're not all, they're literally saying one instance it's got to the council position, that's risk management. They want to bring in a specialist to go and do these work properly. That's the reason it happens there. In the case of staff wellbeing, it was a resourcing issue at the end of basically from the internal audit standpoint. The county services, quite frankly, only an ERP. We do all these things at the same time as becoming almost impossible variable and possibly variable on the team. We can do so much more all the time. That's basically finance. The equalities, That's the reason for commenting earlier about the large number of orders taking place and making sure we actually deliver on them. From the standpoint of the auditors, they want to close these audits off. They don't have unrealistic targets.
No.
And basically the last one, unfortunately, is the system that isn't fully implemented, so they can't actually deliver the audits. There's a whole bunch of things coming to bear all on one go. There's no one straight answer. It depends on the individual, to be quite frank.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, and we've had that back and forth twice, but I'll pick up on David's point. It does seem to me that the two that say that the large number of audits which are outstanding, and we have asked for the answer, does seem to me, I will infer from your answer, Gareth, that it's a resource issue outside of the audit consortium. It is a resource that is an internal pressure in these, and if we are unsure of that, then please do come back with a reply to myself and David to show us that is in fact a resource issue with the external.
I believe your point to be the case. I will review it specifically, but I believe that to be the case.
And that is indicative of the situation you've told us about, Gareth, about the pressures this year, and that is a risk that the committee should be aware of. That there is extreme pressure on resources, and it is slowing the audit process down from our end. I'll take Keith, and then I'll take the first question from Councillor Thomas, then we'll be back to David in a minute. Councillor?
These 5 year put back, and going to check it this year sometime, and you got something like 18 months to do that before it's got to be into the report, because we've been signed off for last year, yeah, we got another this year, they're gone. I mean, we're down up 2 years behind, are we? Is that right?
Well, so we've got the external auditors that are, there is the issue in the audit market in doing the external audit process. This is our own internal audit process where we have the consortium doing our internal audit.
I was just wondering why we're pushing to get them done really quick. Well, they could have done 18 months before it's got to be done on paper.
Well, things should be done in good time, and the more urgent and more important they are, the quicker they should be addressed. And I think that this organisation does take that seriously and does try to address things in good time. But what we're seeing is that at the Norwich side of audit, and also having managers implement these changes, there is an extreme amount of pressure on resources at the moment, which is delaying that process. Which is giving us not the level of assurance that we should be getting, I think. But the external audit pressures are very external in terms of the external market of audit. We're going to find out a bit more about that later. We've had briefings in the past, and that is the kind of validation of the work that this council does and the internal audit process that happens. And so that additional checks and balance, which we do rely on, which we do think is important, is not as happening and as robust as it should be, and that should give the committee more concern, is what I would say as a response to that.
Apologies, I have a civic event to...
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for your time, and we will see you soon. So if I would just now turn over to Councillor Thomas. Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. My question is, I can see that there are several with an outstanding status where there are no responses, which I was surprised to see actually, very surprised. So would you consider these as being extremely concerning? Or high alert, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious is that?
So I went looking at those 4 items with no responses. As I referred to earlier, 3 of them that had been responses, they just weren't updated. So it was actually not failing on the council's side. One of them we've had no response internally. I am taking that up with the relevant exec director. That is an individual who's basically stretched to 2 roles. That is being resolved, but I will be chasing that one up specifically myself. Unless you well would know, we can do managing the process going forward. But I will chase that up correctly. Yes, when that happens, it is enormously concerning because we don't like that. It all depends on that. Some of the items are less important than the others. They're not really stressing as much. Other ones, like we have no capital governance, do immensely stress me out when it doesn't happen because it's such a large number involved there. But yes, it would stress me out. Not at great scale, but definitely certainly a source of concern.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Thomas. I think the question you draw out there represents the broad views of the concerns the committee have with these outstanding recommendations. We've made a good resolution today, which will be a clear message back to the ELT team and the managers, where we've got that expectation now for a year's process within the sort of July time. So I think we've helped ramp up the process of getting these signed off today. So thank you for drawing that point out. And I will turn back to David. And if we could, David, if we can go through quickly with the questions and precise responses, officers, and I will allow you your time back to those responses, David. So go for it.
Thank you. Moving on from paragraph 2.2, can we move to page 43, please, of the housing benefit recommendation? If you remember last time we got a housing benefit report where the issue was there was no reconciliation between the housing benefit system and the general ledgers in April 2022. The response here talks about reconciling the rent system, but what's happened with the housing benefit system, please?
I believe this is housing benefit system. It has been completed. It hasn't been reviewed. There's understanding of this response.
Okay, so the HFI rent system is in effect the housing benefit system, is it?
Sorry?
Can you turn your mic on, please?
The microphone, sorry. Yeah, just leave it on, Gareth, thanks.
Sorry about that. I'll look at this thing. Yes, no, it does refer to the rent system. They are linked. I'll go check out that direct response. I don't think it's a high HFI rent system.
I think Robert will add to that.
Okay,
So yeah, I think in updating there's a separate recommendation about reconciling the HFI rent system, and the that explanation for that particular item is incorrect. Is the reconciliation of the housing benefit system to the general ledger, that reconciliation is still being developed. So that's a slightly misleading response there. It's an error.
Okay, and I'll pick up on that. What I very much appreciate is the focus that Gareth has had in the last few months and the implementation now that you are in role, Robert. But clearly, with the example you've just shown where there is a mistake, okay, is that there's clearly not been attention to these outstanding recommendations within the organisation to the level that this committee expects. And we appreciate the efforts that you've made and you're going to make, but we need to see this now improve. So I think that would be my response to that. David, did you have any response or more points? Yeah, thank you.
Paragraph 4.6, and again, the minutes in the November meeting make reference to the investigation, social housing, sustainable warmth, and LAD1B grants, and the minutes say we're going to receive an updated report on the outcome of those recommendations, but there's no update apart from this section 151 officer says in the providers with something. So I'd be interested to know what the recommendations from those formal investigations were, please.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll bring that back on the next meeting.
Okay, and that's
Can
minute.
I ask
Yes.
as well, please?
Yes, David.
If those need to be in an exempt section of the report, they are, because I'd like to see the actual recommendations in paper beforehand, so I can sit at home a week beforehand and mull them over rather than being told them in the meeting. If that's okay.
Yeah, I would agree in writing as an exempt item, if that's okay, and the officers find that acceptable, so that everyone can digest that ahead of the meeting. Okay, thank you. Before I'll go back to David, just to say for myself on page 11 of the minutes at the beginning of the document, the committee should receive the outcomes of the Q2 internal audit reviews on environmental sustainability, housing repairs and void management, NCSL, and contract management at the next meeting. So that was what was agreed in the minutes. Obviously, that hasn't come as part of the documents today. That hasn't come as part of the internal audit document. And I would like to be, Yeah, sorry.
To answer the question,
Sorry.
the reason it is not a good reason, not a happy reason, is because it haven't been completed, which is a problem all by itself.
Yeah.
So I'll have to follow up with Robert, but they haven't been, those audits have been completed. If you look at the extraction which isn't being completed or been finalised, that is there. So we do, so it is quite right to answer it. Unfortunately, it's a shoe at that point in time, but they would have been complete. So the fact they're not is a problem. So I will, first I'll chase up about that.
So I appreciate that, Gareth. And so my point would be that we've got that minuted to that those should come for the next meeting. But what I would also say is that any quarter report that indicates that there will be a completion of an audit area, we need to see where that's written down, rather than just seeing in the final year report. So if something is close to being closed, and then where is it going to be picked up in the next quarter, or how do we get informed that it was closed and what was the final outcome? I mean, I know there is the sheet at the end, but I think the report should highlight those outcomes as and when they are finally closed off.
I believe the report does. What we could do is provide the actual audit reports per se. I've been used to. It's very common to find every single audit report going through. It might irritate keyboards or extra data, but it might have to come in the exemptions session every single time. But there's no reason it can't be added to the report. It doesn't add any extra work from basically working one perspective. In practical terms, it's just 2 PDFs.
They can request it.
Well, I don't know. No. Yes. I mean, let's open it up to the committee. I think that it is well worthwhile that they come to the committee, even if that we have to take points under exemption. Are the committee minded to have those brought in the reports? Yeah. Yes. So the committee would formally request that they are included moving forward, Gareth.
The internal audit reports will come here every single time they're completed, which will give you good, substantial improvement, and it'll also give you ones with basically limited improvement and.
How much time do you reckon we spend on this at meetings?
Thank you, Gareth.
So I can see you bringing these in, and we're going to read them, or it's going to go up on the screen, and then away we go. We're going to be here till.
Well, we don't know. Well, we see them in shorthand in the graph at the end with their recommendations. We get the traffic light system come through with the top level stuff, and if we're satisfied because those are good audits, no comment is required. We're not commenting on every area of this. But it's good to have a nice quick overview of how each of those audits are run. However, what we don't want to do is we don't want to miss ones that don't fulfil the criteria, don't come up to the standard, and so that we do discuss those at the time. So we want to capture those. So having those few extra pages doesn't mean we're going to have a longer discussion. It just means that it's clearer to the committee where the weaknesses are. Does that make sense?
Well, Jay, but I think we're going to have bigger meetings because it's now 6:30.
I was thinking that when we were asking a lot of questions on cyber security.
Yeah, that's right. So we're asking more questions to start with, and then you've got to have all these extra bits come in. Someone like me ain't going to shut up, am I?
I don't think it's going to create more questioning because they are the same. We're getting the same outcomes. It just highlights the outcomes in a clearer way to councillors, and we will focus on the key questions of each item, and I will bring items to an end. I'll let Neville in, and then we'll take the last questions from David, and then we will close the item.
I just think we need to give it a bit of thought how we do it, because I think the best rule in the world, if you have full reports in front of you, you are going to be questions that will be raised. It will be difficult to do other than spend a lot of time on it. I think you need to get that balance right between what the audits are telling you, and I think we've had the discussion before that we need to be really confident about the auditors doing this work, and confident that the work they're doing is coming up with the right recommendations, and then focusing on those recommendations and what
what we as a an organisation, your role in as a committee, need to be doing to responding to that.
So my response is where reports come back that are unsatisfactory, I would, as the chair, expect officers to just send me that. Okay, that's why I expect. And if the rest of the committee are not minded to see those ones, that's fine. But I will formally request that I want to see them when they are not to standard, because I want to look at that full report, and we are entitled to look at it. What I would also add, though, is because some things are closing outside of the reports, we need to be aware and be capturing the fact that those have closed off. And so I think at the very least that kind of high-level traffic light dashboard report should come when that's effectively closed off, because we're seeing that these things are at report stage, but let's make sure that we're aware when they're actually closed off. Okay, but for myself, and it's up to the committee members. You get the quarterly report. You can see if they are unsatisfactory, and if you want to see the full report, request it from officers. But I would like to see them when they fall below the standard.
So you're talking about those that are limited.
Yeah.
Or no assurance.
Yeah, limited or no. I would like to see the full report for those. And I'm entitled to do so. So I'm just asking now.
I don't have a problem with that. I think the key thing is that having carried out the audit and concluded that there's limited or no assurance and had a range of recommendations, I still feel quite strongly that that's where the focus of the audit is.
Yes.
And if you need some more information to understand
You ask the auditors.
how that recommendation has been reached, then that's not a problem, and we can find a way to do that. We do have to be careful that we focus most effectively on.
Yeah, no, and I agree entirely. But also, we sit above and away from the ELT, and some of those reports will be critical of processes that are under the jurisdiction of the ELT, and that is why it's important that there isn't really any interference in reading and seeing those reports. And so that's what I would say as a response to that.
If there were no interference, and if there were recommendations that were critical, then they would be there. They wouldn't be done for that or
But that's what we need to get assurance of the work that ELT are doing, and that is why we need to be able to read the full report, and that's the important point. That's quite clear. David?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You probably remember, Chair, that I raised a similar question not after it being on, as the agreement that was reached with the previous term audit was that if members wanted to read a report that had come up as the one page, then an email request could be made to the end of audit, and that report would be sent.
Exactly.
And again, I think I probably agree, dare I say, with officers on here that I don't think the full report needs to come in front of members, because I think the issue is that we probably end up going in the weeds and trying to look at the big picture. Plus the issue is that if we get reports here, I would expect some of that text to be redacted. I can imagine members saying what actions lies behind this because it's been redacted, unless it's a below the line item. I don't think it's a law report really should be, a full report should be presented and be below the line. I think the issue is that the progress report should be picking out a particular area and flagging it up to us so we can ask questions without telling us the whys and wherefores all around it and without it. So my own view would be that I don't think the agenda pack needs to have the reports added, but if members would like to see them, as I have, for example, on a couple of occasions, and I think that's the approach that we should be going. Officers should be supporting or suggesting, which in effect they want by officers.
No, I think that's sensible. I mean, I don't think we need. I think I was confused when I was discussing with Gareth. I wasn't referring to actually containing the full detailed report. I just meant I want to see that kind of. I just want to see it highlighted when they're finally closed down back in the reports with the high level traffic light kind of document, and then it doesn't fall off the radar and it can get discussed. And yes, members can request the full report at any point. I'm aware of the time. We're very late. David, Last question on this. Make it your best one.
Thank you. Can I go to page 41, please? Where we talk about safeguarding. And again, if you remember this, I think safeguarding had the lowest opinion. When it was given one there was about the training that had been provided for people. Well, I can see that that's still outstanding. And I think my concern here is that obviously until we flagged up the issue around safeguarding, some actions have been taken but not all. And I think my question comes down to about what mandatory training the staff have to take, whether it's within safeguarding, health and safety, or security, or quality and diversity, or maybe recruiting managers have to do. In effect, how many people are actually undertaking the training? So I'd like to suggest to you, Chair, that maybe not to the next meeting, but because the next meeting is quite late, but the meeting after, is that we have a summary maybe of what the mandatory training is across the authority. How many members of staff should be undertaking it, whether it's all or a certain number, and how many actually sort of have completed it, and how many are outstanding. And the issue is then the water officer is going to do about those that are outstanding. Because I think from a governance point of view, we have a question about, which is why I have to have cyber and the mandatory training. Cyber is it's all right having training, but if there's no consequence and you're not doing it, why make it mandatory? I think from a governance perspective, I'd be keen to know how well staff are being trained in things that management team consider to be mandatory training.
Well, I think that's a great question. So what I would say to officers is to ask them to provide a robust email response to that, to show David where the sort of cyclical nature of mandatory training, how we're monitoring that. That could be provided in an answer. If the answer is not there, we simply don't have a process of enforcing mandatory training, there isn't a kind of a checks and balance there, then I think that's an area of concern which then could be considered for the internal audit plan.
On mandatory training, it depends on the area. For instance, I'm very well aware that information governance, they are definitely chasing us. I just received an email today on the subject. So it does depend on the area. That's what I was going to say.
Sorry, Gareth.
So on this area, it depends on the specific area, whether it's followed up and chased down. I'm very well aware of information governance, so receiving on the day. Tell me who hasn't done all the information governance training, and that's monitored across the council. It's done in a very rigorous fashion. Other areas I'm not aware of, but I might not have been involved in that training, for instance, if we didn't have the DBS. Like it wouldn't be. But
no, of course. Okay. So you have identified that one area of training, there is a process in place. What we need to get is to get a fuller answer from officers on all areas of that kind of mandatory training, and to see how that checks and balances is happening, where the controls are in that, and then equally again, if that response isn't giving us the assurance we need, then it's an area that we're recommending for internal audit to look at. Councillor Driver.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Chair. I was just we had an audit training last night about management scope.
It's all members.
That was all members. Why wasn't the independent member allowed to come? Was she invited or not?
Are you talking about me?
Yes.
Yes, I was invited.
Okay, brilliant.
I was unable to attend.
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure you were allowed to come.
I'm sure you would have had it.
Invited our independent persons.
Brilliant.
All members of the committee.
Thank you. That's brilliant. So I think we've given this internal quarter report a very good bit of coverage. We appreciate Office for the work. We've given them viewpoints of our concerns and our areas of concerns. We've given them some timeframes to work upon that, and that's all been captured in a minute. So I thank officers for the report. I thank the consortium for their report. And I thank David for not giving up and going home and still being here. And I think we will close this item and move on to the next item, which is item number It's number 7, and it's statement of accounting policies and the state of external audit. What I would say to committee members is we've got the work programme after that. We won't take long on the work programme, but there are a few points, so I'm going to need 5 minutes from you after this item. Thank you, David. Over to you. Is it? Are you not? Oh no. Oh, so you're going to do it.
It's Gareth.
Gareth do it. Oh, okay.
David's just reading.
Oh, you're just doing it. Okay.
He didn't have nothing else to do, did he?
And the state of external audit. Oh my God. Do you want to go now? You know.
I expect he'd like to speak on that one.
Yes, I'll invite David to speak. Sorry, I thought you were actually going to be speaking. Sorry, Gareth. My bad. Carry on.
So, and this is a very short paper. We're not planning to change the accounting policies for 2 primary reasons. One, there are no significant changes beyond the MRP, which will go to the Treasury Manager, and to change that. And to be quite frank, if this year is not going to change it, this will be it. There's so many other things. We're really encouraged by the idea that we would actually like to, when David is really allowed to actually complete the audit, in practice, so we like it to make sure it's done as quickly and efficiently as possible. And adding extra work to his busy schedule is really what we don't want to do. We want these audits done. So that might be a kind of a segue to David's part of the actual conversation as to why the audit has moved on in the last 6 months. I can't possibly find.
Well, I think at that point it's time to bring David in and put him on the hot spot. So off we go.
Like deja vu again, isn't it? What I would say is, I'm not just here for this item, really interesting to hear the rest of the conversations around all the other items on the report, so primarily this bit. In terms of the accounting policies, the certificate hasn't changed, so there's no real need to change the accounting policies, so completely understand.
Just for the sake of everyone, there were a few accounting changes in the last cycle, wasn't there, that we were kind of implementing, or am I getting that wrong?
No, you are correct. We changed, from memory, it was primarily the minimums of capital was incredibly low. And there are a few little things we want to change around the edges, but fundamentally this time around, until we get through IFRS for the year, this is IFRS on high in November, the change in the accounting policy there, we're not going to change anything and set by SIPFA. We operate very prudently according to SIPFA, as David alluded to. We're not, because quite frankly, it's the safest way to operate as a council. It's only when you've got very complex financial instruments we typically might have a slight adjustment. But this borough does not engage in size of financial instruments, thankfully. And on the whole, going forward, we will we'll try and conform and sort of code practice where we possibly can. Which is why we're not changing anything. In the future, if capital gets large, you might change the de minimis level. So we wouldn't make it capital. The partnership would be a capital expenditure item for basically £1,000 IT piece of equipment in theory. We have no interest in that. It's now set on a sensible level, it's not going to change.
No, thank you for that explanation. Sorry, I let you back in, David, apologies.
Yeah, so probably the only other comment related to the accounting policy, and I'll come up onto it in terms of the update, is there might be a consultation that might require you to change the accounting policies at a later point in time. Like with a lot of things in this environment, we're not quite sure where that's going to end up. So if I provide an update to the committee, and bear in mind this is a sector issue, so this is not specific to Norwich City, this is a sector-wide issue. Essentially, the position hasn't changed, but the timescales for ministerial decisions and regulations has slipped back, partly because of the change in minister responsible. The new minister obviously had to come in and understand and confirm they were happy to continue that. They have done now, they did that last week, and there was a letter sent to the select committee and to section 151, it might gone to the chief exec and to be seen. And that essentially confirms the position that was previously in place and reported to the select committee last year. And that was maximise assurance, but reset the system. And what they meant by reset the system is audit the current year's financial information. So our position all along has been, okay, the current year's financial position information is the 23-24 year. to complete the 23-24 year, we essentially have to be starting the scope and strategy, our planning this month. So working backwards, how much time have we got to do anything else? Now, the Minister also said that any pension funds needed to be completed. So we've largely done that, pension funds are done. He also said value for money work for any of the years had to be completed.
Yeah.
That piece of work is largely done, including for Norwich. We're at a point where we can nearly report on the findings for that period of time. So we've applied this approach consistently across all of our councils. It's not only our Norfolk councils in the street to and Gallia, we've had a 22-23 audit. It's a consistent approach, and we're now moving on to 23-24 audits. The other thing I'll point at is there's a number of consultations. So the regulations haven't been released. That'll be the first consultation. DLUC will release the guidance and regulations, and that will be out for consultation what this means.
When do we expect that to finish, roughly?
We were expecting it at some point last year.
Okay, all right.
It didn't happen. I think because it needs to happen before the summer recess if they want to set rates in place before September.
Yeah.
I think March, April,
Mm-hmm.
so around that point in time. I don't know. The other is another consultation by SIPFA. So we're looking at the financial reporting. There's three areas, key areas, so they're going to look at consulting on that. If they are approved, that will then be an adaptation to the financial reporting framework on which your accounts are based, and that's what I mean. You might have a change in the accounting policy driven by those changes. And then the final consultation, which will come out from the National Audit Office, that's around the scope of the audit that we carry out concerning value for money. Considering this is historic delivery of value for money, we've done most of that work, so that's going to be pretty irrelevant for someone here. We've done the work anyway.
Councillor Sands would like to just jump in at this moment, and then I'll take Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Chair. I have every confidence that City Council's finances are in a good and stable sort of state, from things we've heard from our officers over a lengthy period of time, not just today. But on page 50, there's an interesting and curious sentence there which says, nonetheless, there is a lull in government making a decision as to whether audit firms should continue with existing audits or do the bare minimum on audits prior to 23-24 to ensure that the authorities are viable. Is this because the government suspects that there are quite a number of authorities out there, certainly stuff we read in Guardian and New Statesman leads us to believe that a number of authorities are facing the wall, basically? Does that statement relate to those sorts of things? Well, it doesn't affect us directly, but it affects us going forward in terms of how you audit our books.
Well, can I just picking up on the training that we had last night, which Neville kindly did. He alluded to the fact that although we're a couple of years behind, a little bit behind, that some councils are 8 years behind, and there's a real risk that even if they're running, their money financially astutely, there could be a massive inconsistency. So the longer you leave it, the more risk there is. But David, give a fuller answer, please.
Yeah, I think you're essentially right in your assumption.
That's it. Green light.
Essentially right in your assumption there. The Minister announced resetting the system, but also maximising assurance. I think that element comes into maximising assurance. As you can imagine, it's significant political decisions to say we don't need an audit on X billion pounds worth of public sector money. So they're looking for some form of assurance. That assurance comes through in value for money work. So the value for money work, we look at the arrangements, in terms of the arrangements for setting budgets, monitoring budgets, whether the assumptions look reasonable, is a crossover in terms of risk management. So there is an area of work. What we're not doing is actually delving into the figures within the accounts. So within that value for money, one of the arrangements is also arranged for financial reporting, which normally we would just point at the financial, the audit of the financial statements. We can't do that at the moment. So what we have done is we've done some very high level checks on your financial statements. So it's not that your financial statements haven't been looked at. We've agreed them to your trial balance, so your general ledger. We've agreed them to your underlying systems at that level. We've compared them to CITFA code disclosure, so do they look like, do they stack up? We've done some consistency checks within them, kind of things that often prompt some form of error. And we've looked at latest reconciliations around cash and bank. So we picked some key bits of the accounts that we think that if there are issues with that, then we'll report them, and that will probably give you a trigger in terms of like, it might be something more here we need to look at. Similarly for the value for money, we will report value for money as we would in any normal year. So if there's any significant weaknesses in the arrangements that we picked up, again, that would be reported for that year. What I would say for the 2 years that potentially, we don't know for sure, but potentially won't get audited, it's not a case of those figures never ever get looked at, because those are figures actually, basically are the opening balance figures that come into the year that we will audit. So there will have to be some work performed on that. We don't know the nature of it at the moment, and some of the figures will kind of unwind themselves over years. I suspect there will be a degree of testing of some of those figures to catch up in order to remove the qualification, disclaimer, modification of the opinion in future years.
No, I think that totally makes sense. Does that answer your point?
Yes, it does. Basically, it shows me that we're on the right track. And the government is actually simply looking to see those who face going under, because let's face it means there's going to be actually some sort of financial ban also in the country, which ultimately does impinge on what we do. It affects our budgets ultimately as well.
Definitely, and picking that sort of balance, opening balance, closing balance as a point as well. Just you need to identify that that's correct. Otherwise, all the figures from there on in are just figures and not reality. So so that does provide some assurance. Councillor Driver, followed by David. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the government must be doing something right, because they actually listen to what we say at this audit committee, where our suggestions are just going to disappear with that year and start again. So no one actually looked at that year or looked at the next year, and it looks like that's not going to happen, because you're only going to look at on the financial side and not none of the other bits and pieces. So it seemed to me they're going to jump. So the government look like they're up to date with everything, but they're 2 years missing, but they're all okay. So it just seemed to me, but when I suggested this in this committee that why don't we just start again, can't do that. And all the officers and near enough members said, can't do that. Well, look like we've done it. And there was no discussion about doing it.
No, well, I mean, this is the government.
The government went across, and
the government can
folks have been listening to me. I don't know.
Well, they do listen to you, Keith, all the time. We know that as a fact, and
they've been looking at these webcams.
You weren't talking to Liz Truss, were you? Please, God forbid. But no,
not this week.
Yeah, and I do come back on that, David. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just point out that I don't think anyone is taking this decision lightly.
Yeah.
And probably when you raise the point, we can't do that, you can't do that. And we still can't do that unless the regulations are enacted. But yeah, there's an awful lot of discussions, an awful lot of stakeholders, a lot of people involved in this conversation, because, as I say, it's a once-in-a-lifetime decision that they want to make. And I think what's important, that's the reset. What's important is the recovery bit afterwards. Because what we can't do is reset the system and then slowly it all starts to drag back again, because they don't change the financial reporting, they don't improve the capacity within the audit and the financial preparation. There's other things that need to happen which will come into place from the consultations that they set out. What they are looking to do is, there's a backstop date, and they're looking to keep that going for 5 years. So essentially, if your accounts and working papers are so poor that the auditor can't complete it in the designated time, you'll hit the backstop and you'll be disclaimed again. So that's what wasn't there before.
Yeah.
There was no appetite for us to be able to qualify a set of accounts. So essentially we just carried on and on and on and on until we actually got to a point where we could issue an opinion. That won't be the case going forward. We'll hit the backstop.
No, so that hopefully that'll help not create the problem in the future. I mean, I'm not being funny. I'm self-employed. I have to do my books. I have to do my tax return. I have to do it myself. If I didn't get all of this sorted and verified, the government would be all over me. I think that this, is an absolute shambles from the government, the way they've run the external audit market for local governments since the removal of the Audit Commission, because we can see that this has simply not worked, and we know that there are pressures in the outside world, but it's a shambles. It's an absolute shambles. So and I share your optimism, but I don't share your confidence, because if the marketplace is still so short of resources and lacks staff, and there is no coherent plan at the moment, we're going to be sat here again in 5 years' time, signing off 2 books half looked at, and it's just not good enough. And it's no fault of any officers here. It's no fault of the audit committee or how this council is operating. Okay, these are pressures from the outside, and it's unacceptable, and it creates a risk and it creates a vacuum that is unnecessary and unneeded. And that would be my view. Councillor Sam.
Just in relation to that, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff recently on Fujitsu, Horizon business, and also the ties of Infosys with Horizon as well. Do we have any exposure to those sorts of things within City Hall or across local government? So, I mean, is there potential risk that something like that would happen and muck up our systems?
There's always a risk for all these types of things that happen with any IT company dealing with or processes. That's very much important where you need to challenge if you get into the problem. Then it's not really an issue to do with the internal audit here. But if this is a post having the Royal Mail, etc., it's always going to be a risk that future issues will always happen. But that's where you really need to check and challenge what systems you get. You don't need to believe, you shouldn't have to believe IT up front. You implement an ERP system correctly, do all things in a set process, identify the outcomes, check it actually worked after the fact, and all the kind of government should have an ERP system, and there will be checks taking place after the implementation of this ERP system here. But we admit that things can work perfectly at ICT here, and we're still needing to improve further. But
yeah, and I'm sure that there will be lessons learned from this another government debacle with this system, and that actually like placing a little bit more understanding on people as well as the results that come back through the data. It's important to do both sides of the work in order to really substantiate where the problem lies, and that clearly didn't happen in the post office case, and it ruined a lot of people's lives. Any other points we would like to make? I'll take David, but just before I say that, there's the MRP change. This did come to Treasury Management Committee, will go to Council next week, and Gareth or Rob, could you send me an email by Tuesday explaining again the pros and cons of the MRP ahead of Council, please? Somebody send me, because it was convoluted. Yeah, but also the upside, downside at the other end, and what the potential downside is. But David, your points.
Yes, thank you. Knowing that the last 2 years are likely to be audited, are we on track, I suppose, questions to officers rather than external audit, to say that the 23-24 accounts will be available to be audited, whatever that might be, within the legislative time that's currently been set?
That's been pushed to September now, hasn't it, or whatever?
May 31st, it has to be produced. The challenge, I think, David, we're concerned with that. May 31st, there is very little time for a proper review process, so we will produce the accounts. Robert's very excited by the experience of that. We will produce the accounts on May 31st. We did it last year.
Yep.
What we did from in June and July is we've got a detailed review, check and challenge, because the set of accounts that everyone's looked at has already had that review. And the thing is, September 30th, he's supposed to finish the review process, the audit, it's completed. The problem is, if he faces a set of accounts who's only had 2 months, it's been produced in 2 months, and there's no review process, that's always a very big challenge for him. So you push it forward. Ultimately, the only thing you push forward is to the account April 30th, because you rely on the actual review process, which will only take a month to do in practical terms. So it is very big. So the account will be produced, and by the deadline, and I'm sure if there are sufficient resources, David and his team will come up to the other side of that. But we really want the review process to meet the accounts produced. Otherwise, when we do the checks and challenges, we'll find there's errors made. But I'm confident there's no reason we can't produce the accounts, and that's what we'll continue.
Yes, Robert.
So the only risk that we have with by the statutory deadline is
Just speak up, through the
Could,
chair.
yeah, Robert, if you could speak more into the mic.
Sorry.
If you speak through the chair, then
Okay, sorry. And so we implement a new finance system on the 1st of February, and that obviously has a whole new set of procedures, charging accounts, etc. So that's the only risk at the moment we have the offences in the 1st of May.
Yes, David. No. Okay. No, that's brilliant. And the other David.
Yeah, just on that sort of application date. So when we would be aiming to audit, it's still the end of September, but we think that's going to probably move to the end of November. But just coming back to that recovery period that I talked about, so when they reset, we've got to make sure it doesn't happen again. What we will be doing is a lot more work on the financial statement close procedures. We'll be working with councils to make it absolutely clear this is what we need in order to service an audit.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the check and challenge is brilliant. That kind of thing we encourage, and we don't see it at very many sites, but we'll be working on that because the implications of us coming in, well, A, we won't come in until we've got assurance we can finish the job. So if we look and only 50% of the working papers are there, then back of the queue is closer to the backstop takes a bigger risk. Equally, if we agree a time scale, we come in, and after a few weeks it's clear we're not going to finish it because of inadequacy. Again, we come out, bigger risk we're going to hit the backstop. So there is that piece, and we'll work with the finance team in terms of how we do that. We're putting together some workshop material as well, so we can sit down with the whole finance team and go through things if needed. We'll get a gauge it based on client by client in terms of how much support do we think we need. So when we talk and Gareth, if we're assured that it's going to happen, then we don't need to go to the next level, but we'll be putting more focus on that in terms of helping and supporting councils, because the other problem is we're all out of the discipline a little bit. We've got to get back into the discipline. 23, 24, and that's going to be really important for us to work together on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good points, and we can look to our record as an organisation, producing our accounts to time and the historical accuracy of those as well is a good indicator that the council's procedures are strong and robust. And with that more focus from David and EY about exactly what they need, good communication in time will just help to make sure that we arrive where we need to arrive to facilitate the full closure of those accounts and the vetting by EY. So I have every confidence that Robert will deliver on time, and there will be minimal anomalies to not give David a headache. But turning to Councillor Driver.
Yeah, just one quick one. Did we get a discount because you didn't have to go through all these?
We've asked that before.
I know. But they're not doing the work now, are they?
I'll ask you another question. Are you actually getting paid enough to cover the costs now with all the additional extra bits?
I usually say that at the AGM.
But does it actually cover the cost? Does it produce a profit, however small?
If you're referring to 23, 24 audit fees, it's gone up significantly compared to what they previously with the start of the new contract. I think it's important to note the bidding for that is based on the cost that it took us to do audits back in 21 and 2, might be 2021. So it wasn't building in, doing loads more work. It was essentially saying, how much does it cost you to do an audit in the market? So what would you go and charge out to a corporate client on a similar basis for a similar number of hours? So effectively what it is building in is the cost to us of delivering an audit in that area.
Lovely. It's 7 o'clock, and I think we've spoken about this, and we could spend all day talking audit, me and Keith, couldn't we?
Yep.
Are there any final points on this item from officers at all? I don't see any, and that's great. And I believe the committee have exhausted themselves entirely and of questions. So I will bring this item to a close and thank officers for the report, and we will move over to the final item of the agenda, which is the work programme. Jackie will kindly remind me what we were going to say on this today.
We will have a meeting at 7 o'clock.
You're going to have
Okay, you guys need to go.
But we're fine. Yes.
We are quorate.
Yeah.
Checked.
And the work programme, we're going to give you a full year at the next meeting so that you can have
Sorry?
we're going to do a full year's programme at the next meeting.
Okay. So you've seen the work programme. First and foremost, I just want to say thanks to Jackie for the work that she's put in the work programme, keeping it up to date and keeping populating it. She's keeping us on track, and we need her, and I thank you for that. We will get the full report next committee for the whole cycle for next year, and you can see on page 70.
Which obviously, just for new members, but it is flexible, things do get added on. As you can see from the next meeting, we have those 2 of the items that we asked for, the mapping exercise and the local partnership review of the governance arrangements. We're hoping those will come back to the next meeting.
Yeah, brilliant. And so I think we can accept the work programme and agree that, chaps?
Yep.
Yeah, excellent. David, quick point on it. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
I know you just mentioned we can get the full year next year, whatever year it is, 4 or 5 for the meeting on the council. Can we have a paper, please, on the changes to the new global internal audit standards that were released on the 9th of January? Specifically, can I ask, or can we have that paper concentrate on the changes that are going to affect boards or audit committees? Audit committees go boards with audit standards.
Mm-hmm.
Can we specifically have what changes will those standards bring to us and our work or school, for example?
I think that's a good and legitimate question. Horizon scanning and making ourselves aware of the risk. Gareth, you respond to that?
What I'll do is I'll speak to the head of internal audit, so not really sure that partnership there is actually practically produced. My impression is something they should produce as a partnership. I might be unfortunately surprised by the results, but they won't actually run us work good either. But I'll need to answer that question. If not, we'll have to do a way forward in a brief paper. But it might be a bit subject if it in practice we have to produce it.
Thank you.
Brilliant, and thank you for flagging that up for the committee to look at, David. So at that point, I will close this item.
With the tracker, there were some actions. We're trying to close those up.
What
should we decide about we've got risk management committee next meeting?
Yes, and I also got some risk paper to Jackie who share accept.
I'm sorry.
I'm just let Jackie. No, please, Jackie, please.
At the last meeting, one of the actions was members weren't happy with the risk management report because it included mitigations. We have risk management coming to the next meeting, but due to staffing resources, we had hoped to circulate those 2 before Christmas, and we will be doing that in the next few days.
Brilliant.
Okay, so that's.
That's lovely. Thank you for that update.
Apologies, that's my fault.
No, it's Gareth who's going to be doing the work. So.
That's perfectly fine, Gareth, and we all have holidays and pressures and life as well. So the committee is absolutely fine to receive that in a few days. So that closes the work programme item, and that also brings the meeting to a close. And I appreciate everybody's time, effort, and enthusiasm for the audit. So thank you very much, and good night.